And we continue at 2:08 in the afternoon. Talk Radio 790 KABC, The John Phillips Show, broadcasting live from the Morongo Casino Resort and Spa Living Room Studios. Mr. Randy Wangs at the sports desk in Culver City.
John, when it comes to repeat brazen crime like the ransacking of the Nordstroms, LAPD Police Chief Michael Morris says we have nobody to blame but ourselves.
And it's really based on what California, the population, have voted into law, has really decriminalized and moved down consequences for these types of repeated offenders.
Thanks, us.
Then be critical of it. Call people out by name.
Oh, he's not going to do that.
Of course not. Why would he identify the problem?
He's got to keep his job.
800-222-KABC is the telephone number, 1-800-222-5222. It is our pleasure to welcome our next guest to the program. He is a political analyst and writer who you can read at The American Spectator and thejeffreylord.com. You can watch him on Newsmax Television and follow him on Twitter at RealJeffreyLord. Jeffrey Lord, welcome.
You know, John, every time we talk, there's nothing going on. I just don't understand it.
You know, when I saw you on the calendar, I thought, poor Jeffrey gets these bookings in the doldrums of summer. There's going to be nothing going on. I'm going to have him on. We're going to talk about his vacation. We're going to talk about the airlines all being delayed. And there's going to be nothing going on in the news. But it's an embarrassment of riches today. All bad news, but we got plenty of it.
As we speak, I am on standby for Newsmax. Will the indictment come this minute? Will it come in 5 minutes? Will it come tomorrow? There is a lot of stuff with this coming and just hanging there. And the media world, as it is just waiting to see what happens.
Okay, let's talk about this, because this is something that is a process that we seem to go through every couple of months now, where you have some prosecutor with a certain political axe to grind that brings charges against former President Trump, and then his numbers in the Republican primary just keep going up higher and higher. I think the last time I checked Real Clear Politics, he had a 50-point lead over his nearest competitor, who at this point is Florida Governor Ron DeSantis. But in Fulton County, Georgia, the grand jury has not returned the indictments officially. They're still out. There's still no official decision. And then the courts posted the felony charges to the website, showing all of the charges as if the jury has already come out with a decision. And so they posted charges that, in theory, haven't even come from the jury yet. This would be like if the OJ jury went out and they were deliberating and they hadn't reached a verdict, the court system in Los Angeles issuing a verdict one way or the other. You can't do that. That's not the way the system is supposed to work. That's what happens in banana republics.
Well, I think, John, that what this says, in a very serious sense, is what is the problem that we are dealing with here, which is to say we have politicians in these legal offices, and the game is, as Alan Dershowitz says in his recent book, it's all about get Trump. And that's what they're all about. They're not about justice. They're not about facts. They want to get in on this because when they do it, as we saw in New York, now people know who Alvin Bragg is, who up until that time, probably other than a handful of lawyers in Manhattan, had no idea who he is. He's the district attorney in Manhattan, and he returns this indictment, and suddenly he's all over the news. Then you get this Jack Smith character in Washington, whom nobody had ever heard of outside of the legal profession. And now it's, and I don't know if you're aware of this, John. Her first name is spelled Fani, last name Willis, and I was under the impression, like I suspect most people, her name was Fannie Willis. Well, no. I have now since learned that you pronounce it Fonnie.
Fonnie.
So just know as you move ahead that there's a way to pronounce it that she prefers.
Oh, yes. Just like the district attorney, the Soros district attorney in Alameda County. What is the name that she likes to be called, Randy?
Madam District Attorney Pamela Price.
That's right.
Oh, don't you love it? Hey, no, standing on pride of office and all that kind of stuff. I mean, yeah, if there's anything that drives me nuts, and you and I have met our share of people like this in the political world, it's the people who demand, they hold some office and they want to be called congressman, senator, governor, what have you. If you call them Jim, Frank, Louise, whatever, they get offended.
Oh, yeah, thin skin. And we certainly have plenty of those. Now, Jeffrey, I'll tell you, this, I believe, is a byproduct of COVID. Maybe you disagree. Where during COVID, it seems like offices in government or agencies and departments in government that were not historically regarded as political became political entities. We certainly saw that happen with various public health agencies when they became highly political, whether it was with vaccine requirements or when they were telling all of us that we needed to stay inside our homes and mask up. Unless you were really mad about George Floyd, then it was okay to go out on the streets and protest because that was a public health emergency, and so therefore they were willing to take the risk. But those agencies became weaponized and highly political in ways that they never were before. The court system and the U.S. attorney's offices in various jurisdictions with local district attorneys that have largely funded by George Soros, in recent years, they've also become highly political. And I think that we're on really thin ice here because when people don't look at their district attorneys and their U.S. attorneys and their public health directors as individuals who are trying their best to play it straight and to perform the basic duties of their office and nothing more, what you end up with is a government that people just don't see as legitimate. They don't look at them as being arbiters of or people who are capable of executing policy decided on by legislatures and signed in by governors and presidents. They see them as highly political actors. And you go down that road and you end up like a lot of South American countries that have faced a lot of political problems.
Yeah, I think you have exactly hit the nail on the head with all of this. And this is a real problem in this country. And it's not just government bureaucrats, it's media elites, it's academic elites. Man, I think you even find this in professional sports with some of the people who run these countries. Certainly, I think this is what you saw in essence with the whole Bud Light catastrophe. And the problem is, I think that what this problem has done is, I think, helped produce the significance of Donald Trump as a political figure, because he's quite, as we know, quite plain-spoken. He's not afraid to take these people on, and you've got the base of his party saying, yeah, it's about time that somebody stood up to all of this sort of stuff. And this has gotten to be very serious, and I forget if I've mentioned this to you before, but on January 31st of 2017, which is to say 11 days after Donald Trump took office as president, the Washington Post had a front page story about the resistance within, meaning all these bureaucrats in Washington who were going out of their way to sabotage his program that he'd been elected on, and that they were doing everything they could to throw roadblocks in there, and it would be hard for the Trump people to know who was doing what and all this kind of thing. I mean, it was an amazing tale, and that is exactly what the problem is that a lot of these people think that they know better than everybody else. They haven't held a single elective office in their life. They've got life tenancy in these positions in the bureaucracy. And from their point of view, the rest of us have to do what they say. And that is a problem, and it's a big one.
Let's say Donald Trump wins the election in 2024. As someone, again, who has worked inside the executive branch, what should the mentality be? Should the mentality be payback, or should the mentality be it's time to rein these agencies in and get them back to their core responsibilities?
That's what I think it should be. And I think, he has the advantage now of having been president. And frankly, he got burned in some instances. He put people in various jobs that probably shouldn't have been there, who were more, the insider types, the Washington types themselves. And they weren't fond of his different way of behaving and all of this kind of thing. I think now he's on to this stuff. And as a matter of fact, I've even seen stories that he's had some people around him planning how to deal with the so-called deep state, how to make these bureaucracies, reduced on the one hand, to give term limits. We often talk about term limits for members of Congress, but we don't talk about term limits, and I think he is now starting to do it, for bureaucrats. In other words, you're no longer going to be able to sign on as an employee in the Department of Health and Human Services and spend the next 50 years there. You'll serve, 8 years, 10 years or whatever, and then out you go. And I think that he is very seriously intent on doing this. I noticed that Newt Gingrich has said the first two places he should deal with are the Department of Justice and the State Department. And I think that's probably about right.
We're speaking with Jeffrey Lord, who you can watch on Newsmax and read at thejeffreylord.com. Jeffrey, the local story here, which has made national news over the weekend, are the two flash mob robberies. One took place at the Americana Mall in Glendale, California. The other took place at the Topanga Mall in the San Fernando Valley. Both robberies generated some $300,000 worth of stolen materials, $600,000 total. All appearances are these were organized crime rings that got together somewhere electronically on the web, and they just saw these malls and these stores as sitting ducks, and they just went ahead and took everything they wanted. Mickey Kaus, who is a man of the left, a writer, intellectual, we have him on this program from time to time, came out over the weekend and said that Joe Biden should denounce all of this crime and use RICO laws to go after these organized crime rings and use this as a Sister Souljah moment. Of course, referencing what Bill Clinton did with the rapper Sister Souljah back in the 1990s, where he proved to Democrats that he was willing to stand up to crime, and proved to independents and conservatives, I guess, too, that he was willing to stand up to crime and not be beholden to the left wing of the Democratic Party, that he was his own man. The response that Mickey Kaus got was that essentially accusations of racism, and they said that that was a bad idea, and Joe Biden should not do that. It seems like low-lying fruit to me. It seems like a win-win for Biden. Do you think he's capable of doing that, and do you think it would be good politics for him to do that?
I think it would be good politics for him if he did it. Whether or not the people around him will allow him to go forward with that, that's a whole horse of a different color. And I just think, increasingly, I saw the video of what happened out there in Los Angeles. That's just appalling. And then you look around the country, and some version of this, plus the homeless and all this sort of thing, is happening in all these Democrat-run cities. People are getting more than tired of it, and they're leaving. Why should they spend their time when they're not safe in their own home or in their own streets or in a store and all this kind of thing? This is ridiculous. The basic things of as it were, law and order that let society function are being deliberately ignored with the evident results. So, I think Joe Biden would help himself a lot if he did this, but I'm not so sure he's going to go down that road.
I want to play some sound for you, and Randy, I don't know if you have it available, of the mayor of Los Angeles, Karen Bass, responding to this, because she used a word that Gavin Newsom likes a whole lot whenever they talk about crime. They don't talk about incarceration. They don't talk about prison. They don't talk about punishment. They're using a different word.
Oh, you want the statement from the mayor that's in the top of the piece. Okay, here we go.
For all of them to be held accountable, as many as 30 people, including men and women.
Accountable.
She wants accountability. Gavin Newsom always talks about accountability, which in their mind means you identify who did it, you write them a ticket, or you make them go to some court-ordered group therapy, or you give them probation or whatever, no one ever goes to prison. No one ever goes to jail. It's just something where you check a box and say, okay, we took care of this. They were held accountable, but they weren't punished.
Yeah, I mean, accountability means accountability. That you just can't be free to do the kind of things that you're doing when you ransack a department store. Some of the video I've seen of people walking through there with garbage cans and hammers and smashing, the windows of display cases and scooping everything out and throwing them in the garbage cans to take with them. I mean, this is just so unacceptable on all kinds of levels. And until we get back to the kind of situation, and to switch to the other side of the country, this is what made Rudy Giuliani a successful mayor. Los Angeles or New York was having this kind of problem with crime, and he adopted what I believe was called the broken windows approach, which is to say, if you broke a window, you'd get really punished for it, because what they found out was that, you break a window today and then you rob somebody tomorrow and you murder somebody the day after that if you're never stopped and punished. And he put an end to it, and New York was pretty safe when he was mayor. And I think Mayor Bloomberg continued it. And now that it's gotten out of control once again. I mean, man, I was just, before I talked to you, I was looking at video of I think it's the Roosevelt Hotel, some hotel in New York City. I mean, you should see the homeless people lined up outside. I mean, and it's drugs and it's a mess. It's an absolute mess. I mean, simple common sense, which I think we seem to have lost in good measure, says that there is a way to keep law and order. If you're a parent, one of the things you learn early on, and certainly you would have a memory of this as a child yourself, is that your parents just didn't let you run wild. You were disciplined. If you did, if they told you don't do X and you did X, there was punishment for this of varying measures. I mean, this is the oldest bit of wisdom in human life, right? And the fact that we're not doing it is resulting in all these horror tales that you see in Los Angeles, and it's just not good.
Jeffrey Lord. You can read him online at thejeffreylord.com, watch him on Newsmax Television, and follow him on Twitter at RealJeffreyLord. Jeffrey, you're in for a long day, and I hope you have a nice, strong drink when it's over, because you're going to earn it today.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right.
All right.
All right, my friend. I'll talk to you.
Sounds good. We'll chat again soon. Jeffrey Lord, everyone. Yeah. If you want to email the show, you can do so at johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. That's johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. And if you want to go back and hear the interview that we did with Larry Elder, who's a candidate for president here in these United States, Randy, that's easy to do.
That's right. Go to KABC.com, click on podcasts, go to the Apple Podcast app, iHeart, Spotify, search for The John Phillips Show, hit subscribe. You can download all of the episodes. You could also go to YouTube, search for The John Phillips Show. There's so many different ways to listen and different ways that you can experience the show, because you can listen at half speed, you can listen at double speed, you can listen in reverse, you can listen in forwards.
Go forward! Wow!
And here with the Gavin Newsom update, Mr. Randy Wang.
John, Gavin Newsom is currently doing a press conference on the first day of school for many school districts, including LAUSD, and he's bringing back an old favorite, Gavinism.
And this cohort, because last year they established the first two cohorts of TK, was very familiar with.
Was he being mindful?
I haven't heard him mindful yet.
That is something we are mindful of.
But I'm hearing a lot of cohorts.
And he comes real close to quite frankly all the time, but he never actually gives it to us.
No, he gives us a quite literally. But I think he, unlike a lot of people in politics, is very mindful of the fact that quite frankly means nothing.
So the big smash and grab that happened over the weekend happened in Canoga Park in the San Fernando Valley, where approximately $300,000 worth of merchandise was stolen. I've been scrolling through the feed of Lindsay Horvath, who's the county supervisor who represents the Valley, on Twitter, and she's got selfies of herself all over the place. She's showing up here, she's showing up there, pictures of herself by herself, pictures of herself with other dignitaries. Not one post about the news that made its way all over the globe this weekend that happened in her district with suspects still at large. Not one thing on social media.
And it's
for the
not
selfie queen.
And it's not like she didn't know about it. In fact, her glasses are so big she could see the crime from her house.
Quite frankly,
she might be the biggest narcissist in local government because her Twitter feed is just a nonstop running ticker of pictures of her everywhere.
I might have you one beat for the biggest narcissist in local government. Speaking of the Topanga Mall and the Nordstrom's getting ransacked, I just saw this from our buddy John Hatami, who's running against George Gascon. Gascon held a press conference today in downtown L.A. about cold case murders, which quickly turned into a presser about the numerous smash-and-grab robberies and burglaries in L.A. County and Gascon's soft-on-crime approach. Gascon immediately went on the defensive, scolding one reporter and trying to say that wrongdoers will be held accountable. He became frustrated and livid at the questioning from the media, telling them to look at his record.
Oh, we're familiar with your record. That's why we're chasing you out of town on a rail.
Quite frankly.
And I noticed earlier that the LADA office, they'll go on Instagram Live for a lot of these press conferences that nobody cares about. But I went back to see if I could get it, and no. It is not online anywhere. It's like they deleted it. So I'm going to try to see if I can find it later on. But unless somebody who is at the press conference wants to post the footage, I would like that sound, please. Help us out.
Well, of course, they're not going to post it because it went sideways for them. And they're dumb, but they're not dumb enough to know that that's not good for them. They put these ridiculous videos out on TikTok that make him look like the buffoon that he is. But because they exist in a bubble, they think he comes off looking good. And they think he comes off looking young and hip, and the kids are going to love him. 5 people watch those videos, and we're the ones that play it on the radio, and everyone who hears it on this radio station laughs at him because he's a clown.
We got some wobbly knees allies.
But they have at least 4 brain cells to rub together to understand that watching him being heckled by a mostly left-wing press corps over these smash and grabs that make us look like complete fools worldwide is not good for his image.
Trying to do some digging right now because the sheriff's department was also at this presser, but they haven't posted the video either. Hopefully somebody does soon, because I want to hear Gascon getting all bitchy with the press.
Why do you think he's even running for re-election? Because I understand he wants the power and he wants the ability to destroy public safety. That I get. But every press conference that he has, and these public officials all have these press conferences that are supposed to be innocuous, supposed to be non-political. It's them getting praised by crime victims. It's them celebrating some holiday. It's them talking about some initiative that will prevent, I don't know, identity theft, whatever. And they expect to get questions about whatever the topic is of the press conference. But when crime is absolutely exploding in virtually every category, and you're the chief cheerleader, you're the one that's encouraging the crime, you're going to get lit up every time you have a press conference. You may think that you're going to get questions about insurance fraud, about insurance companies preying on people or whatever, but no one's going to ask about that when you have malls having $300,000 worth of merchandise stolen from them 2 times in a week. That's the only thing you're going to get questions about.
John, I have an update. The sheriff's department did post the video. It's on their Instagram. So now I have to figure out a way to get it off the Instagram and into my computer. Maybe I can have this ready today, but definitely tomorrow.
All right. I referenced Mickey Kaus earlier in the hour, and I'm going to reference him again because the last time he was on, he said that Feinstein should resign from the U.S. Senate and Newsom should appoint Kamala Harris to finish out her term. Well, in this morning's Los Angeles Times, that's what the L.A. Times said too. The L.A. Times is suggesting that Feinstein should resign and be replaced by Kamala Harris because she's such a drag on the ticket. Kamala Harris, I would imagine, isn't going to like that.
Not even a little bit.
Now, Randy, you did some digging during the break trying to find the sound of George Gascon being heckled by the L.A. Press Corps.
So Gascon and the Sheriff Robert Luna had a joint press conference this morning about some cold case murders that I don't think anybody seems to actually care about, because the first questions out of the press were, we need to ask you something off topic, like the viral video of the Nordstroms getting ransacked. And Luna was like, we're not going to answer those questions right now. You can go to our office. And the video ends with Gascon saying,
Give us about 10 minutes. We're gonna, and I will.
And they cut the video off there. So the good part of the video where Gascon gets heckled, the sheriff's department doesn't want me to see. Why is that?
I'm telling you, George Gascon is highly unpopular, even in left-wing L.A. County. However, he remains in good standing with at least 3 out of the 5 L.A. supervisors. And he remains in good standing with the newly elected sheriff because they got rid of Villanueva and replaced him with a sheriff that the Board of Supervisors gave their stamp of approval on. So that tells you everything you need to know about Sheriff Luna. All of the institutions are going to try to get behind George Gascon and keep him in office, which is why, of all of the offices that are on the ballot next time around, that one we have to pay very close attention to. Because there's no way law and order is ever coming back to L.A. County unless you get rid of George Gascon. Yes, we have a lot of problems. We have a governor who's a problem. He's a lame duck. We can't do anything about that. We have a state legislature that's a problem. And unfortunately, with the gerrymandering, that's hard to fix right now, too. But Gascon, we can kick him out of office. That we can do. And we got to focus on that, because the minute we kick him out of office, everyone will pay attention to that the same way they paid attention to the recall of Chesa Boudin up in San Francisco. You got to get their attention if you want them to change their behavior.